Today, we have invited one of the most successful Russian startups and investors. He used to be an investment director of the iTech Capital $60 million fund. Then he established Gagarin Capital Partners, a leading VC fund for AI projects in Silicon Valley. He worked on a number of high-profile deals, including the acquisition of the Masquerade mobile app by Facebook. He is an entrepreneur with a large portfolio of highly successful companies, currently working on two innovative startups simultaneously. Please give a warm welcome, Nick Davidov.
Good afternoon, I guess, everyone. This morning in Silicon Valley, I'm in California. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a big honor, and it's a great pleasure. I love talking about entrepreneurship, and I love talking about impact. And one more thing which I wanted to add to a rather extensive background Svetlana provided. Thank you for the warm introduction. I think these words are a little bigger than than I actually am. But basically, one of the most important things that we do at Davidov's with my spouse is that we also do a lot of giving back and focusing on making some impact. And one of the impact projects we work on right now is called Mesta, or the place, and it's a community to develop Russian-speaking entrepreneurs, to basically forge more Russian-speaking entrepreneurs, because there are never enough. And one of the biggest reasons we wanted to make this happen is that we are gaining a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience from our failures. So I think I'm a professional fail man. I am really good at failing and learning from that. And I think this is my superpower, because I do fail a lot. And starting a company and starting something new, or starting an impact project, is pretty much the same. It's a startup. Starting a venture capital firm is also a startup. Like when we started Gagarin Capital with my partner Mike Taver, we didn't have anything like to put in front of us. We didn't have capital to invest. We were basically figuring out what the market needs and what do we have to offer to that market. And the same was with Cherry Home, which is a traditional startup, which is now a bigger company working with computer vision projects for enterprise. But everything in this basically strips down to making decisions. The whole concept of entrepreneurship is being able to make decisions in a highly ambiguous environment. Basically, when you don't know what to do, and you have to figure something out. And figuring something out is probably the single most important skill, other than learning from failures, of course, but that comes later with failures, for a newly minted entrepreneur. And basically, my true belief is that everybody can be an entrepreneur and everybody can make impact, because everybody can make decisions. And let's try to look at an example. How do I make decision like what to wear today? I opened my wardrobe, and I immediately, by doing that, I enforced um, limitations on my decision. So I had like a full chaos of ambiguity. I didn't know anything what to wear. Like, well, I had some concept of what humans normally wear. I mean, like, we're not animals after all. Then I opened my wardrobe, and by doing that, I enforced limitations. Okay, I had a framework within. I am deciding what to wear. First of all, I'm deciding based on the availability of clothes. And then I was like thinking, okay, what other frameworks do I know which can basically help me go from chaos of ambiguity to a choice, a simple choice between A and B. And then as soon as I had that choice, I was like, oh, this is like a pretty cool t-shirt with like all the emojis on it. So I think I want to wear that. And then I was figuring, okay, what suits with that t-shirt. So you see my whole decision process, even though it kind of like happened within maybe a split second, was the very same thing we do as entrepreneurs every day with our companies. We have chaos and ambiguity. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what's really out there. We don't have full information. This is why we are constantly training our natural neural networks to basically strip down ambiguity to a choice between A and B. And the more you do this, the higher your ability is. Like it is a literal skill. It basically takes training. And when you're studying a company, you're making a lot of these. But also, it kind of feels that nothing's really happening because when you think about it, starting a company, starting something, you think about an office space, you think about a team, you think about investors, you think about client meetings. All these things gonna happen way later. And a lot of entrepreneurs are naturally gravitating towards like speeding things up, leaping across this whole distance and saying, okay, yesterday I was there, now I'm going to be here. But actually, after starting what, like five companies myself and like being a part of tens of other companies, I figured that the best time of entrepreneur's life is before they get married to an investor, because that's a marriage. Yeah, you it's actually longer than average marriage is what, like 4 or 5 years. Like average marriage with an investor is 7 years. So you're going to become partners for a big chunk of your life, and you're going to have obligations because you're going to manage outside money, and you're going to have like a partner. Before that, you don't have, and before you have employees, this is the best time of your startup career because you don't have the scariest word every founder with negative cash flow has: runway. Runway is how much money you get in the bank, like how many months of breathing air you have in your oxygen tank. And uh, this drives a lot of startups to start fundraising earlier, and as soon as they do, they start spending this money, and as soon as they start spending this money, they need to raise more, and then they need to raise more, and then they need to raise more. And after the first round, it's basically like ride or die, so you don't even have a choice. It just kind of drives you. So before you raised your first money and before you hired your first employees with regular salary, before you got into this like regular costs and expenses, this is the single best time when you have to figure out what exactly are you doing. Your biggest like ideal outcome of this time is to figure out a product market fit without spending a lot of money on that. And this is possible if we assume one thing, and this is like the second most important thing for every entrepreneur starting anything, is assuming that you know nothing. And everything is a hypothesis, which has to be tested. You have to develop a methodology, how to test it very scientifically. Everything is a science, basically. And then you have to test it. And you either prove it right or you prove it wrong, or you prove that you need more information. Uh, and if you turn everything in hypothesis and start with a simple like flow from like, okay, I gotta Google that first. Then after I developed some knowledge from Google, I'm gonna go and talk to my team and my friends and my like people I know about this. And then after I develop more knowledge from them, I'm gonna go and talk to everybody else about it. And as this is one of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing, especially in like Russian-speaking co-founders, but it's quite universal. People everywhere tend to uh, make things being on their own with like just alone with their brain and thinking, okay, this is how it's going to be awesome, and then I design all of the finest detail of that, and then figure, okay, this is how it's going to look like. So I have this ideal crystal castle in my brain. But the more I develop it, like the finer the detail of that crystal, like the easier it is to break it when it enters the real world, like the harsh real world with real harsh conditions. And this basically can kill all the vibe of the startup, can kill all the motivation. So the best way to start is while you're in this like ideal space without investments, without say you probably even work full time somewhere. It's just take the time, enjoy it, talk to like Google, talk to people, talk to more people, get every hypothesis tested, and then you'll figure out what people actually want. And that was a really good tweet I really liked by Paul Graham recently. It's a founder of Y Combinator. So the motto of Y Combinators: make something people want. So Paul Graham got asked, why did he choose want instead of need? Because make something people need kind of sounds a little better, kind of sounds like you're making a change there. But he said one very important thing: people might need something, they don't realize they need it, and they won't be ready to pay for that. But if they want something, they might not need it, but they want something. So this can be turned into a business. And if this can be turned into a business, it can grow big and make a change. So this is like the reverse order. In order to make a change, you have to gain resources, you have to become bigger. So I wish you all a lot of luck with everything you start. And most important thing, don't forget, enjoy the process. The results are might be there, might not be there. It takes many attempts. Statistics tells us that second-time entrepreneurs are twice more likely to succeed. Third-time entrepreneurs add another 35% of odds to the table to like create something big and successful. So just like uh takes takes repetition. And if you're enjoying the process and not just like trying to achieve the results, then you're having fun, then you're like mentally stable and you're able to actually make things happen. And I let's maybe take some questions from the audience.
Guys, if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate. Write to the chat box and we're here for you to answer all of them.
And while we're doing this, I can talk a little bit about what product market fit is. Product market fit has a lot of definitions and a lot of explanations. Uh, but what it really is, based from my example, is rather a feeling. So in a startup, you have two problems, two biggest problems, like two problematic situations. The first one is when you are not growing. It means you don't have a product market fit. You do a lot of stuff, nothing works. You try a lot of things, doesn't happen. Uh, and then you do something. You address some certain need. Let's say yesterday you were trying to sell product A, then you pivoted to product B, then you pivoted to product C, and then you don't even have like resources left to develop product C. But suddenly, all of a sudden, people want it and people want to pay for it and people want to like start pilot projects with you, like if there's like a B2B market where people are just like users are storming your app if it's a consumer app. And all of a sudden, your first problematic situation of not growing evaporates. It's no longer there. And then you're in the second problematic situation. You are growing too fast. So a startup either doesn't grow or grows too fast. Everything in between is not a startup. Everything in between is that you're doing something wrong. Like investors like to call this zombie companies. Some people like to call it um, craftsmanship or something uh like lifestyle business might be. It might be like my work as a restaurant, especially if it's making money. If it's a cash positive, then well, it's a solid business. You can keep doing that. But if you are not growing or growing too fast, then you're probably a startup, and then you have like startup solutions to startup problems. And growing too fast is the hardest thing to be in, because you have to hire so many people you don't even remember their names on day two. You have to search for these people. You have to raise money to be able to afford to hire these people and to support the growth. You have to like do everything at the same time. And being prepared for this time is the most important job you have while you have the problem number one of not growing. knowing like how exactly you're going to scale that. And this is why investors love investing in serial entrepreneurs, because they know that somebody who has been through like problem one and problem two will have much higher odds in succeeding in, because when the time comes and everything starts growing like crazy, it really takes a lot of skill and experience to do this. Okay, we got the first question. How is working in finance different from being an entrepreneur? It is very different. It's very, very, very different. So working in finance, and I assume like I don't have much experience working in finance per se. I was investment director of a venture capital firm, ITAC Capital, which we kind of started. So this was in the way of interpreting. I was employee number one. So basically, this the whole story of this was that founders of Kiwi, the payment service provider, which is now public on Nasdaq, they had in mind this idea to start a venture capital firm. To basically, they were investing a lot in startups themselves. They wanted to do this with friends and family, and then basically attract some outside capital. So they hired me as a manager of this thing, and basically told me that, hey, we need to figure out how to make a fund out of that. And we started hiring a team. We had an amazing team, and we like in just a year we turned that um, into a venture capital firm, which was managing about $100 million at that time. And they so working in finance is very different from being an entrepreneur, because you don't have to make uh, decisions which is gonna like impact everything. Being an entrepreneur is being in charge and being responsible. So taking accountability, uh, and it's much more fun. When you're in finance, pretty much you don't do anything but suggest. So you advise, you give advice, and you suggest things to people. It takes responsibility, yes. You might find it challenging, perhaps, to like figure out a lot of information and provide it into like to feed it to. So, but in the end, you're basically giving advice to entrepreneurs, and you're helping entrepreneurs. So unless you want to be like them, you can keep doing that. Or some people, I know a lot of people from VC firms, they become entrepreneurs. And before getting into VC, I was trying to make startups, and this is kind of like always interchanging things. But a lot of VCs are doing what they do for the single reason, because they don't want to commit to creating a company. Maybe they created a few companies already and they're quite successful, but they know like how stressful the journey is, so they don't want to commit to it fully. But they want to have like a free ride along, because they know how much fun it is. So this is why a lot of my friends who are like VCs in Silicon Valley are are doing what they do, not because of money. Like at that point in life, nobody pretty much does it because of money. They're set for life. They're doing very good for themselves. But what they do is for the fun of entrepreneurship, without the like most of the hard part of basically being desperate and not knowing what to do, and like trying to figure out everything. So this distributing boardroom wisdom, uh, sitting in a venture capital chair, is way more fun than basically being in the trenches without knowing like where the enemy is. Cool. Do we have any other questions?
I guess no. Thank you very much, Nick. We are very grateful that you have found the time to share your experience with us today. It's a great honor and great pleasure.
Thank you. So another
Uh,
question, which
right.
advice would you give for those who try to raise money for the first time, how to face failures in this business? My first job was sales development representative. I worked at Cisco, and basically, what the job is, you have a phone in front of you, and a database of contacts you got to call. And I had to make 100 phone calls per day, speak to maybe like 25 out of them, because a lot of times you're just like inquiring if a person's present and they're somewhere else, and basically find like 5, 6 6, I think, per day, people who would be willing to like talk to our sales manager about like buying some Cisco networking equipment. And I was calling. So cold calling is a tough job, and cold calling is actually a stupid job, because like there's you don't feel like you're adding any value. You're just like getting a lot of rejections every day. You're getting like 20 rejections. But calling systems administrators was like uh, another kind of masochism, because these people are specifically systems administrators for the single purpose of not being made to deal with people. They don't like people. They like machines. This is why they work as systems administrators. And when somebody like cold calls them, like that infuriates them. So I've been dealing with a lot of rejections. And so when I started raising my first capital, I thought that I'm prepared for like any kind of rejection. I was wrong. You cannot prepare for the number of rejections you're going to get when you're raising capital, and you can never be prepared for how it actually feels, because when you work as a like sales development representative, you don't really care about the product. I mean, like if somebody insults your company, well, you just like follow the script. You're just like, well, okay, that doesn't have to do with me. When you're getting rejected by venture capitalists, and you're going to be rejected over and over, it feels very bad. It hits very close to home, because they're rejecting your idea, they're rejecting your baby, they're rejecting you as a founder. And this feels bad. And everybody's trying to be like very nice about it and saying, hey, let's touch base, and then like in the next quarter or so, figure out like what's gonna change in your company. And that feels like really hard. But the biggest thing you can do to aid yourself, help yourself to not be rejected by limiting the number of people you talk to, and doing and making homework. The better you prepare, the least are chances that you're going to be rejected. Like serial entrepreneurs talk to fewer VCs to raise money, not only because VCs are more likely to give them money, but because they already know whom to speak to. They have warm intros. They know what they're looking for. They already tried pitching this to like a lot of their friends. They're doing a lot of things subconsciously, which like first time entrepreneurs are not doing. And this is why first time entrepreneurs are failing to raise money, and second time and third time entrepreneurs are succeeding in that. So, for example, like a repeat founder raising money for like their new venture, what they would think, okay, so this, I know the market, I know which funds invest in that market. I've heard names of people, or I might know partners which invest in that market, or I might know other founders who can introduce me. Would I go to like whom do I choose as my introduction point? I don't know. I'll choose everybody, but not now. I'll do my homework first. I'll make an ideal pitch. I'll go pitch to all of my existing investors, partners, employees, like friends and family. I'm gonna go pitch to my grandma if she understand. Look at if this is like compelling enough for her to understand, because you don't have to persuade people to give you money. You have to, like, nobody ever invests because they're persuaded in something. People invest because they're excited about something. And you got to figure out, do you excite like this type of person? And then like when you're prepared, like you took that, like, don't get me wrong, that takes a lot of time. That takes like 2-3 months to prepare for like a good fundraise. And at the same time, you're experimenting, you're searching for product market fit, you're testing hypotheses, you're making decisions, you're basically stripping down ambiguity into like A and B, and this everything at the same time. So like don't try to leap ahead and skip the time. When you're ready to raise, you'll have everything, like all of the materials prepared, like so many versions of these materials. If you're on version 1 of your pitch deck, you're not prepared to raise. Version like number 28 is probably like closer. um, and then you know exactly whom you're going to be pitching to, and then you know exactly like whom you're going to be uh, raising from, and who's going to introduce you to them, and like what other things you're gonna do to help your fundraise. Are you gonna launch on Product Hunt, or that's too early? Are you gonna like try to get featured on TechCrunch, or that's also might be too early? So the more people you're gonna talk to, the fewer the chances you're gonna actually raise. If you're gonna go and talk to like one person, then another person, then another person, and stretch it out to like 6 months of endless fundraising, you're never gonna raise. Because when you talk to another like VC on like month 6, they pick up the phone and call the VC that you talked 6 months ago and ask, hey, have you seen these guys? And they say, yeah, like I've seen, I've passed. What's the reason for this VC to invest in? So getting refused is a bad thing. Don't let it happen to you. And any more questions?
Thank you. I guess not, and we're actually close to running out of time. And
Ah, that's
thank
pretty dope.
you, thank you once again. I wish we had more time to chat.